Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Once again, we are in the man cave where all the layouts are based, as you can see. So I just want to start off by saying a big thank you to those of you that tuned in to the last layout update. It did exceptionally well for some strange reason, whether it's a case of me deciding to upload it at midday on a Sunday, or whether it was just because people liked the content. There's a bit more sort of progress than last time, I suppose, so maybe that's sort of part of it. I'm not really sure, but in any case, hopefully it continues, and thank you to you all. This video, I'm not really sure 100% yet what I'm going to do in this one, so you'll have to just bear with me. It might just be a bit of sort of mincing about really, because we made a lot of progress last time, so now I'm sort of at the point where I'm thinking what to do next. I might get some greenery on the embankment between where the Croxley tip inspired area is going to be and that road. I'm not sure. I might do that. One other thing I want to do is I actually want to ballast the yard on the other end, so the yard that's down in front of me here. So we'll show that next. I'll get on with that and do some of that, make that look a bit pretty, because the Cavalix 56 is on the horizon and I want to get this running and looking good for when that arrives, for some pictures hopefully, if I can get my hands on one. So that'll be nice. Also, I could do have a bit of a clear up in here because I've got a couple of friends going to come over and run some trains. Probably won't film it because we'll be just enjoying ourselves, but they're going to come over, hopefully run a few bits, and fingers crossed it all runs nicely. It's been a little while since I've properly done anything, but yeah, hopefully you enjoy the video. So it'll probably be a bit all over the place, but that's the nature of what I do really. So anyway, sit back, enjoy, and hopefully we'll see you at the end for a catch up. Couple quick jobs I want to do though today, probably before I start tidying, because it will have to dry, is this yard. You can see obviously I ballasted up to here. I got there and stopped because I actually ran out of ballast, but I do actually have ballast now, so I can continue that a bit. So I was going to carry that ballast on to the end because the track is glued down and ready to go. I've got a couple buffer stops to put in, so ballast that, and then I'll put some different ballast at the front. So it's going to be like a sort of stone yard or whatever. So I put some sort of piles of ballast and stuff, hence I got the little digger and bits and bobs. So that would just finish that off well, make it look a bit nicer. And then I might also get the airbrush out quick and just go over the main lines, just to sort of dirty them up a bit. So to start with, I'm using these new Bachmann Scenecraft buffer stops. That's I actually got these at the Great Central when they had the Bachmann return stand, because I believe the packets say that it's rail built buffer stop ×2, but they only come with one in the pack. So they were basically giving a couple to everyone that spent a large amount at the show, and I obviously spent a couple £100. Anthony got a load as well, so I've been using them up in various places. But they're quite nice actually. Obviously they're a bit plasticky, so they'll need a good sort of weathering. But you can see there they are quite a nice looking buffer stop. They're a little bit nicer looking than them Pico ones you always get. But I thought a pair of those would go nice at the end of the yard, so I'm just going to get the other one out, build that up, and just glue that into the track, and then I'm going to go ahead and ballast all of this. Look at this guy. What on earth is he doing? He really doesn't have a clue, does he? He's just making a mess on my railway. Someone stop him, quick, quick. So I had these old Hornby retaining walls spare. You can see that's a full length piece. And then the second bit was full length, but I've cut it down. So we've got this piece along the back, this little stub along the front. That's going to go around there, roughly. And then I've cut another short stubby piece. So we've got the first bit that's going to go in there, this little stubby bit in here somewhere, and then I've just notched this little piece out. So then when that bit is all glued in place, again I'm going to hot glue it all, that's going to sit about there, a couple mounds of ballast, and then of course we can have our little sort of JCB sat there on the ballast piles, sorting all that out. So that should be cool, give the idea of what's going on. I like to use sort of scrap bits I've got around, because why not? Obviously space is a bit limited, so we're only going to have two little sections here. I'll use two different types of ballast, and the back, you would have noticed where I've obviously chopped it off, excuse my hand, these little pieces, there's going to be a wall here anyway that comes off this retaining wall sort of thing, and then there's going to be bushes behind, so I'll just cover those bits up with bushes, so that shouldn't be a problem at all. I will probably also run a little bit of ballast just around up along here somewhere, just to give the impression that the yard goes this sort of way. We'll sort of deal with that, but yeah, hopefully that's going to look all right. So that's going to sit about there. Hopefully that's glued in enough. And then we want this piece to go in like that. I'm now running out of glue. Halfway through, typical. This is why you have spare glue sticks. So we've got that bit in. Now I will put some glue on this piece. On there. That can go in. I'll obviously sit there like that. Now this section can go in. So I'm putting a lot of glue behind there because the level's quite low. So I know it probably looks horrific, but hey ho. That is going to sit there like that. So there we go, that's glued in. I'll get rid of the stringy bits. I like Gorilla Glue because it sets quite fast, but it's also extremely strong. It's got a good sort of tack to it as well. That in there. That in there. Of course, any bits we miss, the PVA will get it. Out of the way. I'll just spread that over. So yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use just what I've got laying about. So grey blend. Woohoo! Grey blend in this corner. That's going to go there somewhere. Probably use some of this buff stuff in here. We'll have to fill up the back of there where it's not quite got it all with the polystyrene, so it's no biggie. It's a lot less than filling up the entire thing, so I'll come back with a bit more of the grey, I think, just for the front here. And in any case, this grey stuff is going to be down the front here anyway. I was actually going to use this to cover the floor area, just as sort of a bit of a gravelly sort of surface for it all. But what I will do is, when I come over with the airbrush, I'll just sort of cover an area so this looks like it's a different colour. That was my sort of thinking anyway. If it works, hooray. If it doesn't, we've not lost a lot. So I'm just about to glue it, but I thought I'd just get an idea of how the scene's going to look. So you can see there, just chuck 3 wagons in just to give an idea. We've got that little sort of JCB. Well, I suppose it's a Volvo actually, isn't it? Why do I keep calling it a JCB? You get what I mean. So that's just going to sit around there somewhere near the ballast pile. We've got this old goods van that I found at a show once. That's just going to be sat in the back there. So that can obviously hold some sort of stores, or maybe staff could go there and have a sort of chill out if they really wanted to. Although probably they'd want to be away from the action. But yeah, I think that's going to make for a nice little scene. That should be pretty cool. So as I said earlier, there is a wall to go between the canal and that section. It's this stuff. So this is from Goodwood Scenics. So I think the idea is that this will sit on the front of that wall. Obviously it needs cutting into sections. So that's like a corrugated metal sort of fence, and that will separate that area off from the canal. So that should look fine. Obviously I'll put that in at some point, but not just yet. But yeah, so I will take all those bits off and I'll get a good layer of glue on them now. Are you all getting bored yet? If not, here's another time lapse. Anyway, how about going and clicking that subscribe button? Maybe leave a comment below at the end of the video if you make it that far. Good luck to you. Well, the yard is now looking a bit better. Now it's got some ground cover on. I must admit I did mess up the edge in the end. This time it didn't go to plan. So I ended up actually peeling the tape off. So what I'm going to have to do is, once the glue is all properly dried, I will come along and scrape all these bits off the edge, and then I'll probably use a bit of fiberglass or something just to go from the edge of this wood up to the top there, just to give it a bit of strength, because that is just polystyrene, so that will give it a nice hard edge, and I can always touch in the ballast here and there. But I think it's looking pretty good. Obviously it needs a lot more work, so that's just a quick sort of job for now. I also had these 6 IOA wagons at the back. You would have seen them plenty of times in running shots, and I bought a lot. I've been buying loads. Every now and again I'll go to a show and I'll buy one, but obviously they're bright yellow, so I just went ahead and weathered up these 4, so I've now got 10 at least to run in a nice weathered rake. I've still got about 3 or 4 more, but 10 is a nice enough train for now. But yeah, you can see they're not obviously perfect, but I tried to sort of roughly match the state of the others. I think I've got them pretty good. They look quite cool. So I basically sprayed them quite brown initially, and then wiped most of the paint off, which has given me this streaky effect. And then I've gone over again with another pass on the airbrush, much lighter. They're not all the same, they're not all uniform, so that looks pretty cool, but I'm quite pleased with them. I think they'll look pretty smart going around the layout. As you can tell, I did go a bit mad on the airbrush to tone down the bright grey ballast, which I think has worked somewhat, but obviously it needs a lot more work, so just bear with me on that. But as I think I touched on earlier, I missed the ballast that's in that pile there on purpose, so that it looks like it's actually a different material. And I think after now, well, I think now that that's all toned down around it, I think that works quite well, having the 2 different materials. Obviously I'll have to put a few sort of spillages in certain places. We've gone around the little grounded van at the back as well. You can see I've heavily sprayed some brown around the outside as well, because I don't want it to just be ballast and then straight into grass. So where the brown bits are, I will throw some brown scatter down so that it kind of blends in a little bit. But yeah, this is a 66 that I picked up. I think I mentioned it in the last one. I took worm drives out, so it's just a dummy. But you can see there, if I just move all the wagons out of the way, both lines are all in, they're ballasted up. They've got a load of dirt over them. And these are those nice Bachmann Scenecraft buffer stops that I was on about. And they actually do fit pretty much perfect. The tension locks run underneath them, which is nice, and the buffers are the bang on height for them, so I'm very pleased. But yeah, I think the scene is looking pretty good. I did go ahead and chuck some dirt over the main lines up there. They do need the ballast touching in places because it's a bit thin, so I'll do that at some point. And of course the scene is let down by this track that's missing, but for now we haven't got a bare baseboard at the front anymore, so that's another job off the list. And the dirt goes round to here, so where those points are is where it all starts. And yeah, that'll be a nice little yard there. So as you can see, that's 10 wagons swallowed up, so we've got room for 4 more wagons, I believe it is, the way I worked it out and the way I skewed this line over. So you can get about 4 more wagons in there, get the loco in, and you'll still clear the point. If not, it's 2 locos, I can't quite remember. Well, it was all going well in the cabin, and then of course I've got to work for a living at some point, so here we are. So it's currently 2 in the morning, and I'm about to take this train back to London, so no rest for the wicked. Luckily this week I'm only in for 1 day, or 1 night even, so we'll get cracking again on the layout in the morning. Lovely. 66714 is our loco choice. Off we go. Well, we're back in the cabin now. It is the next day after I had a bit of a night shift going on. So it's now Tuesday. We've got Anthony and Richard coming over tonight for a bit of a running session. So I've had a good old tidy up for once. So it's about the cleanest it's ever going to look in here. So you can see the calvert boards have had a major clear out. There's just a few extra bits left up there. There's some track that is just basically spares. I've got a 92 for Ross that I need to have a look at, because as per the Curious Girl 92 broken. We've got a few other bits up there. There's a nice R stock, which you would have seen in a couple of videos that I converted so it can be just dragged, and the Great Central buildings. So yeah, at some point we'll get on and get this started properly. We have at one point before mapped it all out with track. Anthony brought a load over from the shop, so we've got an idea what we want to do anyway. But yeah, anyway, cleared up Harefield, got the dust off it because it's been a while. It's not been hoovered for a long time. So it's looking all right. I put the fencing back in as well, just down the front, just in case you take any pictures, it'll look a bit better. Also, the other major bit that I've cleared out is this little layout. I don't know if any of you have really sort of paid much attention to it, but just before I got the cabin, I'd say 2 months before, I bought this baseboard and this little fiddle yard piece off someone cheap and thought, oh, what should I do with it? And then another one came up for sale. So we've ended up with this 7-foot scenic area. And I started building a small sort of half relief steam depot for all of my LT panniers and some wagons and bits and bobs. So there's a turntable down the back, there's a coal stage here, you can see the incline and the point there where it was going to come off to go up to the incline, and of course you would stop underneath it. So that was just going to be like a sort of steam servicing depot, and the general idea was I was going to do this up and hopefully take this to shows, because it's obviously something I can just throw in the car, chuck on and play with. And it'd be a bit of a sort of practice run for when this one day goes out and about. Oh, I suppose this bit and all of this bit. So that was the general idea there. But as you can see, when I got the cabin, the motivation definitely ended, and it stayed the exact same ever since. All that's happened is I chucked it on 2 shelf brackets, one either end. Forgot to put one in the middle, so the layout's sagged over time, so it's probably a bit bowed at the minute. So it needs a bracket in the middle there. And I then went and bought a fiddle yard board for it, which is up here, a little 3-foot one, which would obviously replace this end piece, although I could bolt that on the end of the fiddle yard board, I suppose. But yeah, I'm just not really sure what to do with it, to be honest. Obviously I want to get it up and running. It would be nice to have this here, because the idea is if you don't want to operate Harefield, you can come and stand here and operate this as a separate layout if you want, because it's at standing height. So my thinking was, obviously we went with the half relief depot idea, hence the open front shed and all that sort of stuff. But I might actually simplify even more and just go with a single road shed that's open at the front. So sack all of this off basically. I'll probably keep this little stub here just for ashing out locos and stuff. But all of the rear, basically I would sack that off and build a low relief platform, because some time ago I bought this Capital commuter set, which comes with the Art Deco low relief station building, and it comes with some nice station platforms as well. And I happened to manage to find 2 more from some kind gent on Twitter, if I remember correctly. So I was just going to put a single platform at the back with a nice sort of 3rd rail, bit of track, and then basically have something shuttling in and out while I play on the front. So that was the kind of thinking. The platform could stop before the turntable, and it could even, I suppose, sort of lead into the turntable, so you could have a couple carriages with a diesel on the front or a steam engine. You could go on the turntable and then it could loop round, I suppose, without going in the depot's sort of narrow area. But yeah, you have to let me know what you think in the comments, what you think I should do. I've even got some cobalt levers. I was going to make like a fake sort of signal box interior to go on the fiddle yard. Originally it was going to go here, and then I decided to put the bridge in instead. But yeah, I mean, it's a cute little thing. I just need to actually crack on and get it working. Going back this way, not a lot has changed since the last video. But we are basically just gonna give it a good sort of clean up and hoover it, and then run some trains and enjoy it. I did make this little billboard though. I had it spare. It sort of fell out of a box earlier, and I thought, what can I do with that? And then Handley, the Backman Collectors Club magazine, came through the door. So I thought, well, why not? I chopped that up with a London Transport Class 20, and there we are. So I think that's pretty cool. It probably won't live there. I'll find a home for it. The only other addition is this tower. It's like a radio tower or something, but I picked it up at a show ages ago and I never knew where to put it, so I've just chucked it in that corner to give us a bit of sort of height. I've drilled out a couple of holes for putting more of them road lamps in, street lamps, whatever you want to call them, but I've just not fitted them yet. But yeah, that's it really. So happy days. Let's play some trains. So I had Anthony and Richard over last night for a running session. Didn't actually film anything in the end, which was a bit of a shame. But yeah, cabin seemed to run all right. They had a nice time. I think they didn't bring much, so I'll have to kick the backsides next time to bring in a load of stock. Anthony bring 2 locos. This is one of them. So this is a Sonic Models A5. Now, another friend, Dan, bring his one before, and he tried running it through the branch line and around the main, and it actually hit the tunnels because it's quite a tall model. I don't know if anyone's ever noticed. But since then, I've actually raised the tunnels up 2 courses of bricks anyway to give me more clearance. So now it actually goes round just by the skin of its teeth. So that was nice to see it all running. However, Anthony had a front headlamp fitted by a friend, and they fitted it straight to the pickups on the engine, which isn't a problem. It just means the headlamp is constantly on. So I thought I would take it apart and try and fit the headlamp instead to be powered by the decoder. Did that last night and then ended up fitting it on the solder pad, which was for it reversing, so the light was on in the wrong direction. Then took it apart again to change the solder pad over to the other one so it was on when it was going forwards, and for some reason it didn't like it and it wouldn't work. By which point it was about 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, and Anthony and Richard wanted to go home. And as you can see, the only space I've got in here now is on the lift out board, because obviously I'm doing something with this. This is why I've got the desk in the house. However, all the stuff's down here, so I'm doing it down here at the minute. But yeah, so obviously I felt a bit guilty because it then didn't work at all. So I've kept hold of it for today, and I'm going to get this lamp working. And as a bit of a dear Anthony, sorry, I'm going to put an orange LED in for a firebox light, and hopefully that'll look quite good. So fingers crossed, we'll have a firebox glow, and we'll have a directional headlamp which you can turn on and off and dim with the decoder settings, because it was extremely bright. It was like a searchlight going around. The other thing I want to do is, it had this little small iPhone speaker, I believe it is, just stuffed in the bunker. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to try and fit that in the smoke box, because there is a little bit of room between the chassis and the smoke box at the front. Interestingly on this, the motor is right at the front and it goes in the front of the boiler. I've never seen this before. Normally they're further back here somewhere, but yeah, it seems to obviously work quite well. You'd think that would put a bit too much weight over the front bogie, but I suppose in any case it'll help stop it derailing. But yeah, it's a really nice model. I actually wouldn't mind grabbing one, to be honest. So if you've got a Great Central one, I'd be quite interested. But anyway, I'm going to fit some LEDs, get it all tested, and hopefully when we come back, we'll have a running engine. So we've got the speaker in the smoke box, obviously the headlight. We've got a firebox LED in there now as well. Previously someone had, it looks like, had gone to fit a firebox light, and they drilled a hole, sorry, really off center. So I've obviously drilled one in the center, as you can tell. And what I've done, just because it's going to be in the cab and you're barely going to see it anyway, I'll use a tiny bit of black tack just to fill that hole. So once the cab's on, it's all dark in there. It'll just look like there's a hole in the middle, and hopefully that orange LED will shine through there nicely. The other thing is, rather than route all the wiring underneath the model and it all get caught and stuff like that, I routed all the wiring inside the boiler at the top and off to one side, because you've got to remember the motor on the chassis will sit quite high up in there, so I always try and go off to one side so it goes around the side of the motor. So all the wiring runs along there, and then it comes right down the back of the firebox, and there's a little tiny nip out of the plastic housing for the back of the cab, just down the back left there, so you can see down here. So the wiring poked through there, then I fitted this piece back on, and from there I've got a piece of very fine heat shrink which just fits over all of these wires. Push that down, and then in the bunker we've got a little cutout. You can see I've actually got cut out both sides because I forgot what side I was doing it on. So Anthony, don't shoot me, but you'll never notice it anyway. You'll never be able to see it because it's behind the handbrake. But yeah, so this side will just fit over that heat shrink, and that will hold that down snug. So I don't need to glue this in. So when that's in, that will pull that down, and that will just sit like that, nice and snug there against that step. It's about the same sort of height, so you shouldn't notice it. The advantage to this is, the way I do it, if obviously you take this out, this is then loose. If you take the boiler barrel out, the wiring just runs through heat shrink at the top of the barrel, so only the heat shrink is glued to the inside of the boiler. The wiring is actually loose inside it, so you can, if you ever want to, remove everything. Why you'd want to, I don't know, but just in case you go on a mad one and decide you want to add something else later, then that is the option. The only other thing I'm thinking of doing is, so the bunker actually attaches. It's a bit silly, really. I mean, this, I would say this is probably one of the best steam engines I've ever had to work on, from the way that you can put it back together like this if you want to fit lights. The only drawback is that the bunker attaches from underneath with this little screw hole and above through there. Now, if they were both from above, obviously it'd make life a lot easier, because you can just sort your decoder out, plonk that back on, then you can screw the roof in with this one little screw here, and then you're all done. So that'd be brilliant. Instead, they've got one screw on the underside that you can't access with the chassis and the body mounted together, and then you've got one screw on the top. So what I'm hoping to do is, I've taken a little washer out of here, which means that the roof and the bunker clamp together a lot firmer. However, the roof is sort of sprung upwards ever so slightly, but the roof does clip in at the front. So I'm hoping that what I'm going to do is get the decoder in the right place. We're going to sack off this screw hole underneath. We'll screw it down at the back, and then when you slot the roof section in and screw that down, that should also pull the front down if there's any gap. Worst case scenario, and that won't work, I'll obviously have to take it apart again and mess about and redo it. But that's my general thinking. For some reason also, they come with a screw either side in the bunker there. If you take those screws out, then the supplied coal load fits perfectly, because it's got two little sort of tabs, I don't know if you can see those, that go in those holes. So why there's screw holes in there originally, I'm not sure. That's a question hopefully one of you guys can answer. But yeah, I'm basically going to play Tetris now, and hopefully we get somewhere, so wish me luck. So there we got the decoder in the right position now, and the wiring just tucked down the back nicely and out of the way. You can see we've got that bit of heat shrink where the wiring comes through. So I've just disconnected the roof from the bunker, and it slides straight over, look at that. And then down there obviously is where the wiring goes through, but you'll never really see it when the roof is on. All I need to do now is get a paintbrush and just touch in the cab floor. Where these figures were glued in before, there was a lot of glue everywhere, and I had to take the figures off to sort of do the work, and it just left a right old mess. So I ended up scraping all that glue mess off. So I'm just going to get a brush and just dab in a bit of matte black paint in there, and then hopefully we will be in business. As you can see there, we've got a nice bit of room for a stay alive if Ant ever wants one. For example, I do have a U-Choose one here spare, and that would probably, well, without 10 ton of tape around it, that would squeeze down there, I think. Either that or a little Lay's one. Don't tell DCC Concepts, they'll get upset. But yeah, pretty good. I'm pleased with that. So happy days, get it back together, and then Anthony can have it back. So we're moving back over to the tip area now. Obviously the track is still temporarily in. It was just to give me an idea for space. I've got this rake of 7 Hellion dogfish wagons, which I want to create a set of London Transport ballast hoppers with. So that's why they're out. I was just sort of having a check over. I've heard they've got their issues, but I might watch, there was a video on Chadwick's channel, Charlie, He did a video about Belgian dogfish and their coupling problems and running issues and things, so I need to go and revisit that just to double check what he got up to. But I think some KDs will probably help with those. But in any case, you can see I ran a Stanley blade and I've run a scraper down just to separate these two bits off. As I mentioned previously, because this is a permanent bit of the layout, this is just plaster cloth and foam, whereas because this is an area that would potentially come out eventually is the plan, and could be a separate sort of exhibit if you like. The idea is that this, well, the reality is that this is fiberglass, so this is a lot stronger than this. So I just need to make sure the two sides separate. So what I'm going to do is I've got to get this board out shortly so that I can clean the edges up and then go ahead and stack grass. Before I do that, I'm going to have a look at replacing this little piece of the road, which is something I mentioned, I think, in the previous video. Because I went and put these retaining walls in, I ended up just putting them straight, and that means that we've obviously got this gap. So I was going to fill this gap in, and also I was going to come along here because that will be the top deck for our scenic break, which will be a small bridge. So it's easier if I just make a new piece of road here and then just sort of blend it in. That's why also the pavement stops. So I think first of all I'm going to unscrew this, take it off, make a new piece, and hopefully it will slot in. I say we'll have that extra piece of the road, which will make sense why it was so narrow there, and fingers crossed it'll all tie in nice. And obviously we're doing all that. At some point very shortly I'm going to go ahead and actually fit the track and get it all looking how I want it. I will space the sleepers on the standard bits of track. The points I won't worry about because sleep spacing is quite often tighter on point work anyway. But let's crack on. Right, found an offcut of wood, and that is the new corner piece in. So grab the old one. You can see, I'll just line that up. You can see the difference there, what I've changed. So obviously we've got the overhang here for where the little sort of bridge is going to be. I've cut down a couple small bits of wood for supports, just to give it a bit of support at the front, because otherwise it's all overhanging and relying on a little small bead of glue between the retaining wall and the wood, so that gives it a bit of strength underneath. Obviously I've still got to hoover out before I finally glue it and then screw it back down, hence these have got nothing on them as well. The only other thing I need to do before I permanently put it in position in a sec is I need to drill out where the point motor hole is going to be for this point, because obviously when that's permanently secured in, I can't get a drill in and that would be very embarrassing. So that's got to be the next thing I do, clear that out, have a bit of a hoover up after drilling that, of course, because it'd be a bit counterproductive, and then we will put a load of Gorilla Glue down, get it all in position, and then we can look about getting the wall in. Now, if you've watched the channel long enough, you'll know I like the old measure once, cut twice approach, and we always pay the price, but I like fixing my own mistakes, so shocking, isn't it? This end, beautiful, look at that, it just butts in there absolutely perfect, but down there, nope. So what I will do is obviously I need to get a bit of body filler out anyway, because there's a couple bits in here, a couple nips where I've used this to cut on top of before with the what's it called, that thing, I forget what it's called now, hence why there's a load of wood on the floor, because I normally put whatever I'm cutting on top of a scrap piece, and that's the piece that I've cut it out of, as you can see. So yeah, a bit of filler to fill in those little bits, and obviously the screw heads once it's all glued down, then I will use that filler also to fill in the back edge there, because it's a bit naughty, and then it should look pretty good, obviously with a bit of paint on it. You can see with this temporary bit on this side how much wider it's going to make the bridge. If I get a van, see, there's got to be no pavement on this piece, so if you get a van and maybe a car or something, you can see it makes a nice bit of difference. That, to be fair, I could even probably fit a thin sliver of paving on there if I really wanted to, but we'll see when I've got the road surface painted on there. As I say, I might even be able to come round with it, but I'm not overly fussed, because I was thinking I could put some sort of traffic lights up there if I really wanted to, something like that, and have a nice narrow bridge, or I could, as I say, have no pavement and then just have it nice and wide in 2 lanes. But yeah, I think that's going to be a nice sort of extra little difference, and of course it'll make a massive difference to the scenic break here, because otherwise I was a bit stuffed. So without that I would have been knackered. There's the top piece glued in then, and you can see the supports, they've got a load of glue on them, so they'll go rock hard and they'll just stop the front from deflecting. You can see also I used a hole saw and drilled a nice big hole at the back, just in case I ever fit any street lights or anything, then I can sort of fish the wires out through there, because that's the mistake I've made on this section. I realised I drilled the holes, but then I can't actually get the wires through, so I'm going to have to guess from underneath and drill a big hole and try and reach the wires. If not, I'm going to have to order a gigantic drill bit just to get them. So yeah, a bit of a mess up on my part. Down here obviously is going to be the edge of the tunnel, the bridge, sorry. So I've just shaped this little piece just to give me as much room as possible, and that is going to sit there again with a bit of glue. Doesn't matter that we've got a little piece overhanging, because the scenery is going to thinly start there and spread out, so that's fine, because we are going to have a girder running along there with the usual bridge girder sides. So that is the plan. Obviously that means that we're left with this open piece at the back, but I'm going to have to make it so that the bit that sits on this board actually sort of slots in and covers that, because the inside of the tunnel will be at an angle. So it's going to be a lot of messing around, but in the end I think it'll be worth it. You can see also I've drilled the holes for that point. So we've got the frog wire hole, we've got the track feeds, and then I've used a 6mm drill bit and drilled 2 holes and then connected them together, and then gone in there with a burr piece, like an emery cloth sort of piece, just to elongate the holes slightly and make them a bit wider. So then when that sits in there, you'll never see that bit anyway, but it just gives me that little bit more room to move this side to side, rather than be exact with the hole. I know a lot of people just go in and drill like a 12mm hole or whatever they do, but doing this way, obviously you have the same length hole overall, but you don't have the width, which will then obviously start spilling over into the gap between the other sleepers. So it just means you don't lose all your ballast. So yeah, that means that I can go ahead and fit that point whenever I feel like, now that we know the position. But for now I can go ahead and start building up this. I'm going to probably mix up some fiberglass as I did before, and I will lay a bit of fiberglass down here. I'll lay a bit on here, just on this edge, along here as well, and then I will push the retaining wall into place, and hopefully that will squash into here and it will get rid of the gap, because in this little sort of piece it's only going to be a bit of sort of rubbish and a couple tufts of grass anyway, so nothing to overly worry about. Well, we're all glued in now, looking good, pretty pleased with that. And I've begun the tunnel, or the bridge. I keep calling it a tunnel. It's not a tunnel, it's a bridge. So I'm just using the usual method that I do with wheels, girders, and then I'm using some plastrat that I got from AGR. So this is a H-beam section, and that fits nicely over the size of wood I'm using. If you look up there, just gives me enough underneath where I can come in with some Metcalf card and just line the underneath of the tunnel with brick. So if you basically looked at this sort of angle, it looks like there's brick underneath. Obviously that will hide that mess from where I've been cutting stuff on it as well. But yeah, I got pretty lucky, as you can see, with the length of the girders. They're bang on. All I had to do to get it to fit flush was just take the tiniest little nip out of there due to the angle of this wall and this little piece sticking out. However, a little bit of green foliage or something just in that corner when I'm all happy with it, and you'll never know. Obviously I've got it double-sided, so that's as it's going to look. So yeah, as I say, I used this plastrat stuff, the H-beam, and then I also had this right angle. Well, it's something that annoys me on this. It's not actually a right angle if you look. It's very sort of shallow. Ignore my painted hand. And I basically just cut down one side just to give me like a strip, because it's the same thickness. So that basically gives me just like a little edge. It looks almost like a bit of a curve, doesn't it, if you like. So I've just put that along there, and that obviously means that the back piece also has something to sit on, otherwise there'd be a gap underneath it because of this piece. So that works well. Obviously I put the support in here. It's nice and strong. It's glued at the bottom and it's glued at the top. However, at the top, because this piece of wood on the edge there was a little bit damaged, I've actually driven 2 large nails into it. They're the nails that are used for putting the tin hornboards together, if you've ever done that yourself. So they're only small, but they just give it that extra bit of strength, and it's not going to go anywhere. Obviously, as I said, I put them supports in on that piece as well, so that's now all nice and strong. I've also got a bit of plasticard, and I've just made a little retaining wall for this side. So I've used plasticard here, a bit of foam in the middle just to pack it out a little, and then the same on this side. Obviously, as you can see, it's not finished yet. As for the rest, so this is just glue gunned in. You can see there's a big old bit of glue down there, just a nice thick layer just to keep it sort of in place well. However, down here I am going to get the fiberglass back out because, as I said earlier, I need to sort that gap down there. So I'll get that back out, and either that or I'll use body filler, one of the two, and I will build that ground level up anyway, so it looks like it drops off a little more gradually, and that should be us sorted. We have got the 5x1 board out of the way now, and just a little skim of fiberglass across the edge just to clean up where the plaster bandages are sort of frayed, and then the same on this edge on this board. I'll turn the camera sideways, you probably see, and across the back as well. The handy thing is the fiberglass eats away at the foam, so it actually goes concaved, so it doesn't stick out when you put it all back together. We're just going to static grass. I say we, royal we. We're going to static grass this bit quick, and then once that quick coat of paint is dried on this, I'll static grass that, and when we put it together, you shouldn't see the join, hopefully, as long as it's green.
Is that what colour is?
Oh, you can't tell.
For the viewers at home, many might not know.
It's alright, sweet.
Sweet.
Happy days. Slight whoops. I think it sunk a bit too much, so we're going to have to do take 2 on that. So that board's now out, as you can see. So this is attempt number 2 of filling that gap. The first time what I did is I had this board out, and I actually had a straight piece of wood, you can see there, and I came up from here and I tried basically filling it in with fiberglass until it met that piece of wood. However, then I went and put this back in. I got that to where I thought it should be, put that back in, and realised it didn't match up at all, and all the heights were all over the place. The reason I tried it that way is just because I already had this out. It's a bit of a pig to get in by myself. Also, didn't really want to ruin all of that bit of grass because I'll have to redo that as well. So, attempt number 2. Instead, I got masking tape out, and I actually masked along the edge of all of that grass and then covered the grass up. So I masked the grass off quite tight so that you can actually see the level. Then put the board in place, bolted it in as it should be, which was a bit of a faff on my own, but I'm going to have to do it again shortly. And then, because I had the tape on this section, I then, as you can see, removed most of the static grass on this piece, and then with the fiberglass, mix them up. I had this cardboard box to mix it on, which was a nice flat edge. So I mixed a big glob of it up. I put quite a lot of hardener in it, as you can tell by how pink it is, purely because I don't want to be sitting here all day waiting for it to dry. So the more hardener you put in, the quicker it will go off. So I mixed a load of hardener in, which gave me about 10 minutes working time, something like that. And then I used the applicator to just feed it down into the cracks and try and level as much as I could. And that is where we're at. So you can see now how much the foam on the inside is actually depressed in. But that has given us the edge we needed. So it now all bolts together as it should. And it's given us that nice sort of line across, which hopefully when that's all grassed, obviously you won't see it anyway. But while this is out, it obviously gives me an opportunity to sand this down, because I did put some fiberglass over where I had those lines from previously cutting wood on this piece. And I've also fiberglassed in the screw holes. So yeah, the idea though, of course, is now that this is a completely separate piece, if I just turn the camera sideways, it'll probably mess with your head a bit, but ignore all this. So the idea is I can come with a back seam board and go all the way down there. I can go along that side and go along that side, and then it becomes a self-contained shelf layout. So I've got my sanding mask on. I'm going to use my DA sander and just sort out that road quick. There's the join now then, so obviously it's much nicer. Now the reason I didn't just go ahead and fit both the boards back together, fiberglass over it and then Dremel down it or whatever, is because you're then left with sort of 2mm gap from a Dremel disc, whereas I want it to be quite flush. Same as these sort of bits. So I've done a similar thing by masking tape and a bit of filler, and when these are actually butted up properly, because the board is just in the loose, you only get that very tiny join line, so it's pretty good. So hopefully that's going to be the same. Also, obviously I didn't want to affect this side. The main reason for that was this side is actually flat already, so I did put a big piece of wood along the back of it, and this side wasn't the problem, it was this end. So obviously I didn't want to touch that, but I will be doing take 2 with the static grass now, and hopefully now we won't notice it. Fingers crossed.
Hello, I'm the static grass monster, and I think you should subscribe to Eric's channel at Underground Eric.
So we've got our embankment looking nice and grassy. However, it is a little bit plain. So what I'm going to do is I've got a pair of scissors, a hot glue gun, I've got some rubberized horsehair, and I've got some of this wooden scenics, shrubs and saplings. What I'm going to do is cut a load of random bits of rubberized horsehair up and randomly glue them around the embankment for some volume for bushes. Then I will get some layering spray for static grass that I normally use, spray it all over those, and then drop a load of scatter on top of them, sort of thing, to make them look like a bush. As well as that, I will fill in some bits with this sort of stuff, and then basically just try and make it look a bit more sort of varied and overgrown, a bit sort of like the area over there, that kind of thing, but maybe not as uniform, because it does look a bit like 2 there, 2 there, 2 there, 2 there. So it wasn't the best, but in any case, that's the idea. Well then, the embankment came out all right in the end. You can see the rubberized horsehair with a load of scatter over it, and then we've also got those shrubs and saplings over there with a few extra little bits and bobs, and I think it's come out pretty well. Of course, it now means I'm going to have to do all of this side to match it, but hey ho, I think that's pretty good. So that leaves this sort of section framed off nicely, where we can start thinking about fitting the track now. And obviously over here we're looking pretty good. It's all obviously dry. These have finally dried. There's a lot of ballast under there, so that's all pretty good. Happy with that. I'm going to have to clean the front up with some fiberglass and make it look pretty, as well as bits like this little cut out and stuff, and put some ballast on here. This was just a base sort of scatter just to make it look nice for now. Well then, just before the end of this video, because I'm aware it's now about 50 minutes long, I've had the idea for this, which includes this. So I've just randomly thought about it now. I'm sitting here building this 5x1 little section that can come out on its own. It's got a little point that comes off round the curve sort of thing, round to this sort of direction. I'm then going on about what should I do with this, blah, 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 while I'm talking about also having that module, which could be incorporated in something like a shelf layout or a smaller layout that I could exhibit on its own. Why don't I mix the two? So the idea, thinking behind it, would be you would come in here, you've got your station behind, we condense down this little shed for steam engines, then you come past the station, you come round this curve, and here is where the point would be, the first point on that little Croxley tip board. This is where it would sit. So then the 5x1 board just bolts to the end of this. I would obviously lose the turntable, which is quite a nice sort of focal point, although it doesn't really fit in the space. It's a bit too crammed in. So we'd lose the turntable. I've chucked a radius 2 point in, radius 2 bit curve in, just so you can see that we've got plenty of width there to get that point and curve in, bearing in mind the platform road's going to be over here somewhere, I think that'll work, lads. So yeah, we're talking 7 foot scenic that way. It'd be 6 foot scenic this way, including that obviously 1 foot width. So we've got basically an L-shaped exhibition layout. I can have my 3 foot traverser board on the end here, and then on the end of the traverser board I can have this with my 2 little shelves for storing a couple engines. It's bloody perfect. Why have I never thought about this before? Obviously this is going to need all ripping up and basically starting again, which, as you've seen in my previous videos, I don't mind. So there we go, that's probably the idea for that. So we might even start doing that in the next video, because I like doing yet another project before I finish the last one. What I'm doing just for now though is I'm going to start getting these points in, getting that bit of track in so that I can get ballast on this board. I'll probably do that in my own time, so we'll see where we're at when I come back. So we've reached that point again at the end of yet another video where it just leaves me to say thank you for watching. I really appreciate all the comments, all the likes, all the interaction. It really motivates me. So thanks to you all for subscribing and watching the videos. So until next time, cheers, and let's build a small exhibition layout.